Today, it's Thursday, March 4th. It's the book club for movies with Amy and Samir. Samir, happy Thursday.
Happy Thursday to you. Beautiful
Thursday.
day.
It's Thursday.
It's almost Friday.
Yeah, it's our first genre Thursday of the month. Again, we were doing fantasy films this month, and looking forward to that. Sorry, I'm getting it shared here. Let's go ahead and talk about yesterday's movie.
Uptight. What? When I read the description on the Criterion channel, saying it's amazing to think that this movie was made in Hollywood, and I'm like, yeah, they say that about so many movies. And then I watched the movie, and I was like, I really am amazed that this movie was made in Hollywood. I was blown away by it.
Of interesting things about this. Also, very similar themes to Judas and the Black Messiah, which we watched
very much so
just last week. Yeah,
I feel like this movie did more justice to this kind of story, because I felt like I got more of an attempt to understand how somebody would or could commit an act of betrayal against, people who are fighting for equity. And I think the movie really kind of is about, systems that create desperation in people, and what happens with that desperation. Also, it's interesting. This is only a few years after this movie is made, only a few years after Martin Luther King was assassinated.
Yeah, which so
you're getting this
talk about
brilliant picture of what's happening internally in the movement towards full equality and respect in the eyes of the culture and society and the law. And I feel like the movie is a little critical of the factions that felt that violence was the way to go. So the movie's also about this violence versus nonviolent protest. Mm-hmm. And so the people who are advocating hey, we're tired of being attacked, we want to attack back. And of course, when you're in that moment of that kind of desperation where you literally, can be fighting for your life just because you walk down the street, a situation that is still going on today, it's well, how can you blame somebody for wanting to protect themselves? But at the same time, you're seeing how the flaws in every person have consequences when you're blinded to anything except your rage, in a way. And it's I like that the movie doesn't tell you rage is a bad thing. Rage is something you shouldn't have. It's no, you should be really angry. But at the same time, when they cast out this character, they're like, oh, well, we couldn't trust you because you were an alcoholic. We didn't know what you'd say. I'm like, well, that fear was validated because of exactly what the person did. But could they have prevented that from happening if they had kept them in the group, and not cast them out? It's so I think there's so many angles that are all presented in this movie, but you also get this fiery anger that's simmering. You get the sense of what it felt like to maybe be in that world and be a Black person at this time. I was completely blown away with this film. I looked up Jules Dawson a little bit and forgotten that he actually was somebody who was named by another person in the House of Un-American Activities Committee. He was blacklisted from working. And he kind of brought that raw, gritty, sort of noir filmmaking aspect that he had been known for. And he sort of applied this understanding of the corruption, the systemic and moral rot that is at the center of that genre, so to speak, even though we don't really call it a genre in film school. We don't really do that. But but I got the sense that he understood how to tell a story about systemic and moral rot and the consequences of that and what it does to people who have the good intentions, people who are just trying to survive, people who are trying to make a life for themselves. I got all of that in this movie. I'm like, oh wow, I had not thought of having a director apply that type of filmmaking knowledge to this subject and how well it would work. Because I thought it was brilliantly filmed too. Like, what did you feel when you were watching it?
Yeah, I really did enjoy watching this. As predicted, Ruby Dee had a very small character, but also as predicted, the scenes that she was in were like, like she was so good. I'm so glad that we
She
did
was
this
so good,
movie
and
just because she also co-wrote the screenplay. And someone else who co-wrote the
yes,
screenplay was this actor who plays Tank, this guy named Julian Mayfield. He had been in one other film in 1958. He played the band leader in something called Our Virgin Island, and then he co-wrote something in the 70s. But this is it. This is the last film that he acted in was this movie, and he's the lead.
that's insane because he's so good in this movie too.
Yeah, just like
That he and Ruby
gives it his
Dee
all.
wrote this with Jules Dawson. Because I can imagine, like when we watched Judas and the Black Messiah, I felt like the issue there that made that film a little bit uneven for me was they're trying to do two stories at once, and it's hard for you to really tell either story with a great deal of clarity when you want to tell the story of the informer basically, but
Yeah,
you also can't really do that without telling the story of this person who has not had a movie about them made. So this movie,
yeah,
I felt it was a little clearer because it's very focused on this character, and it's sad because what the movement does. This is a sort of a picture of the movement when it's still trying to start out and it doesn't know where to focus their energies and where the best place is, and they kind of lose the forest for the trees because that you have someone in your group who is an alcoholic and trying to beat alcoholism. And this huge devastating assassination really rocked so many people's worlds. And now I feel like people would instantly go to that person and be like, are you okay? Can I stay with you? I want to make sure like they would go the extra mile. And here it was kind of like, oh well, you're too much of a liability. We can't deal with you. Look at you, you're a failure. You started drinking again. There's no like understanding that he has an illness, that this is a time when he needs more support, not less. And you end up creating your own enemies sometimes without realizing it because of the way you treat people. And I felt like in that moment, like that's where they lost it in this story, is that they cast that person out instead of trying to help them. And they may never have been in a place, also if that someone is an addict, like legitimately an addict, that is the worst time to send them out on their own and hope that they don't tell anybody anything, because that person will do anything to feed that addiction. And it was just a tragic mistake that I don't think was born out of any ill will towards him. It was just people trying their hardest to get by and to really defend themselves. But you see them sort of cutting people out of this process that can really help, and they're kind of rejecting allies and they're rejecting people from their own group. And I was fascinated by the character that kind of escapes unscathed from this, even though he's the one who arranged this. The queer
oh,
Black stool, when he says like, I'm a N-word, I'm a stool pigeon, I'm an F-word. And he's
yeah.
also there just calling out all the white people, like, when they said like, I never use that word. And he's like, to thine own self be true. Like
Also,
that character's
a standout
fascinating.
moment for me was the fact that, first of all, his apartment was like a 60s time capsule of like, oh my God, including inflatable throw pillows, which they had a pillow
Inflatable throw
cabinet.
pillows,
I was watching this with
the
my parents, and my
built-in,
mom and I were like, are those inflatable pillows?
they are inflatable pillows. And I loved even the closet that he had that was like built into the wall with the
Yeah.
like lined interior.
And
Like
the
that
rest
character is someone who's like
is
tells you
very
at the
like
beginning.
kind of depressing, people living in these like crammed apartment buildings and hanging out in like alleys and things like that. And then you go to this guy's apartment, it's just like very ornate.
Yes, for and what was amazing to me also is that I've read a lot of books about depictions of gay characters in film. I
Mhm.
don't think I've seen any of those books reference this character, which is such an enormous oversight in that field of scholarship. Like, how do you not talk about this character? This is somebody who is so smooth from having been really tossed around by a very rough river,
Mhm.
like for a long time. Like, he's not fazed by anything. People are threatening him. It doesn't even break his demeanor because he knows what the end of all of these games that people play are, because he's been a victim of discrimination on multiple levels. So he's, very much excluded from this movement, which was true of a lot of gay men. They were not really welcomed into the movement at the beginning of any movement.
Mhm.
Like, gay people had to form their own society to fight for their own rights, and were often excluded from some civil rights things, just because there was the toxic, um, the masculinity that did not want to they perceived homosexuality as weakness, and weakness is not what they needed. They needed strength, and so all gay people were considered to be weak, and so a lot of gay people of color had to sort of fight their way into some of these organizations, but they were often excluded. And that's not true at all now. Like, I still remember, actually, when I went to Berkeley, a friend of mine had put a pin on my jacket, and I hadn't looked at it. He just said it was a black cat.
Mhm.
And he put it on next to all my rainbow pins on my pea coat that I used to walk around all the time in when it was cold in
I remember that.
Berkeley. And I was walking, right, it was Telegraph and Bancroft, I think, right where those meet, that T, there's the campus.
Mhm.
And these two guys see my jacket, and they're like, hey, are you coming to the meeting tonight? And I'm like, what meeting? I don't know. And he's like, oh, there's a meeting. It's in Oakland, it's at this address. Like, I really hope we see you there. It would be great if you could make it. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, I'll think about it. Like, yeah, it's awesome. Good on you, brother. Kind of like, I was like, oh, okay. And then I looked at my jacket, and it was a Black Panther pin, and I had no idea. And so, but this is like the disparity in the way Black Panthers are depicted in movies and TV is like dangerous, angry all the time. And I'm like,
Yeah.
these were two young people who were
Like,
totally
"Hey,
friendly
you
and
see
nice and wanted. They're like, oh, hey, there's somebody who supports, what we do,
Yeah.
and all the social causes that they actually do. Like, Black Panthers do a ton of like amazing community work that almost never gets talked about, which we saw some of in Judas and the
Mhm.
Black Messiah. It was like one of the
Right.
first times I'd seen that really depicted in a movie, which is, horrifying to me that we're not talking about all these other good things that they are still doing today. But that's what it's really like. I'm like, if you are, open to talking to people, and you're supportive, and you're not racist, like that, we've never seen this movie. It's never talked
Again,
about in any of our
hadn't
classes.
even heard of this movie
Hadn't even
prior to
heard
when
of
we were
it.
looking up Ruby D films.
Why is this movie like? I feel like, and it's hardly ever shown. It's hardly ever screened. This is really a movie that Criterion kind of rescued, and
Yeah, which is
it's just
why
so much.
so good to get the Criterion app because you can see movies like this that you might not be able to see anywhere else. And hopefully, this is part of their permanent collection and not just like, oh, we have a few Ruby D things. But if you do want to see this movie, highly recommend this. Available on the Criterion app, as well as a few other Ruby D films. And she was our focus for yesterday. Like all of her roles, not super big
Not
part.
the biggest
However,
role,
Raisin
but
in the Sun was a way bigger part than this. So if you primarily just want to watch her acting, I would say A Raisin in the Sun. But this movie was just really great, and hadn't really seen anything like this, especially from that time era. So please check this movie out. Uptight
please do,
on the
please do.
Criterion
And you know what? She may not have had the biggest role on screen, but she had a huge role
app.
behind the camera
Yeah,
in making
Chase.
this picture and getting it to the screen.
Mhm.
And just another reason to give Ruby D a round of applause, and
Yes.
hope that people continue to remember and recognize all the wonderful work that she did and the things that she
Mhm.
brought to American cinema that are beyond, like, the value is incalculable,
Yeah.
in my book, to have gotten a movie like this made. um, I just hope that it gets more exposure, and more people see it and more people talk about it. But it starts with even a couple people talking to a little book club about a movie. um,
we are starting a new revolution right here of the Uptight Appreciation Club.
Such a triggering word too, like that
Mhm.
title. Because it's
Yeah,
also like a thing that I think
triggering
is said to a
poster.
lot
Look
of,
at this.
like imagine how many black people have been told that they were too uptight about this, or that, you're being
Yeah,
too uptight. And it's like,
provocative
excuse me,
poster for a provocative film.
why don't you walk a mile in my shoes and then tell me that I'm unreasonably uptight? Like it from top to bottom, just like so every choice I felt like in this movie was so brilliant. Just like you said, please everyone go watch it.
Please do, please do. But today is Genre Thursday. It's our first of 4 fantasy films we are focusing on for this month. And today, we're talking about Beauty and the Beast, La Belle et la Bête. This is not the Disney version. This is from 1946. John Cocteau, with a little bit of direction also by Rene Clement, because he had to step in a little bit while John Cocteau had a illness. He had like some crazy skin thing going on. It had to be hospitalized.
Many things.
Yeah.
There's some talk to have about that part of the story of this movie, because this movie stars Jean Cocteau's lover and partner in life, and sort of like almost a muse to him, an actual muse for him as an artist. Because Jean Cocteau, he's a painter, sculptor, poet, playwright, screenwriter, and filmmaker. He's a true Renaissance artist, is a master in many fields, and his lover plays the Beast in this film. And apparently the makeup process to put this look together gave Jean Marais, he's Jean Cocteau's lover, he's the one who plays the Beast. Jean Marais got numerous boils and things on his skin, on his head from wearing those wigs, and it was almost like a lace net, a lace net wig glued to his face all over. And there's almost sort of like a sympathetic malady thing happening, they believed, with Jean Cocteau, because he started to get the same kind of skin problems as Jean Marais was getting. And it wasn't like he caught it from him. It was more like they were so in tune and so in love and so one that anything that was happening to Jean Marais was happening to Jean Cocteau. And Jean Cocteau also got like impetigo, which is stress-induced. This movie was made just after the war. They dealt with huge stresses to put this movie together on very limited resources. So to create this otherworldly fantasy realm in this movie took a lot of work, a huge amount of work and stress, power going out, so many things that went wrong. And like, they don't even have dollies and cranes and things, so sometimes they would have people just on like pallets with wheels and things to create imagery. It was amazing how much ingenuity went into making this movie. So it literally bore itself out in Jean Cocteau's health. And so incredible. It's incredible. When you watch the movie, you don't get a sense of any of this difficulty at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was reading that several different film stocks were used just because they kind of used what was available to them. Same with all of these costumes. They kind of had to make things out of scrap fabric. There's a scene that shows some bed sheets hanging, and apparently those kept getting stolen because it was rare to find bed sheets that didn't have like patches in them. Like these perfect, like, show up to set and be like, cool, the sheets are gone again. That's great. Yeah, and things like it was so cold on set that they were all like huddled around lights trying to keep warm. But this movie is certainly known for its incredible visuals, this visual style of this. And this movie it's so great that I guess when, so this came out in 1946, Walt Disney saw this, and he had already been thinking of doing a Beauty and the Beast film at that time. He saw this and was like, I don't know if we could do a better job than this. Like, this is so good. And then, of course, Beauty and the Beast wasn't made until the 90s, well after he had died. Another fun thing I had read was that John Cocteau, he was so worried about this film. Like, this is just so different. Like, no one has really seen a film like this. I guess at the premiere, he had invited Marlene Dietrich and was
Wow.
like clutching her hand the whole time. Like they were like really good friends, and he was just like, "Get me through this." But then, of course, everyone loved this. They just love this film. I also read, going back to his makeup, these fangs that they had to put on him. Once he got those on, he had to like keep them on until they took them off later. So it would be like a full day. So he was only allowed to eat like mush.
Yeah, because you couldn't eat with those fangs in there. Oh my god.
No, no.
It's just, oh, it's wonderful to hear. I don't want to tell all the secrets of how the movie was made because, I kind of agree with Roy Harryhausen where he said that, it spoils the magic of a movie. People, it's like the magic trick doesn't work if the magician tells you all their tricks. And so it's really nice. It's really fun to watch a movie like this because a lot of people, come to this movie without really going through that knowledge to get to it. They can just accept it as a fantasy film. And I think for the time, like when you look at it, it's kind of, there's some really simple special effects work done on it, but it genuinely totally puts you under a spell, and you're not even looking for how something was done. You are just enjoying the creation of this world. And Jean Cocteau is just like, he's just an artist like unlike so many other people. As any other filmmaker, there's just, you're in a Jean Cocteau world when you put on one of these movies. If you like this, I mean, I wish I could find it. I don't think I have the box anymore, but I do still have that box. I just have to find it. But I had what they called the Orphic Trilogy, and it was a special Criterion Collection 3-disc set that had the Blood of a Poet, Orpheus, and then there was another film in there that I can't remember the title of it at the moment, but it was called the Fake Trilogy. And even though it was one that set was a casualty of my desperate need for food during college, but I could not sell it. I took it to the store and I remember saying, okay, how much is this box set? And they scanned each disc individually, and they're like, oh, for each, this is how much you'll get for it. I'm like, is that with or without the box? And I'm like, it doesn't matter. I'm like, well, I'm keeping the box. And I kept the box for that set. I still have it somewhere. It's on display somewhere in this very tiny apartment, but I couldn't even get rid of it because it was just like, I don't know. It felt like I was getting rid of the movies all over again if I got rid of that box. Testament of Orpheus. Yes, the second one. But it's like, he's really like, it's the Beauty and the Beast aesthetic is really explored in those next two films, like amazingly. And then he didn't make any more movies after those movies. So it's like his film output is small, but there's a lot of plays. There's a lot of writing and work out there that he did. And Jean Marais for the rest of his life.
If you look at his IMDb
really,
page, he has 116 writing credits, including some new things. It's just things that's like based on things that he's done, based on his plays. I mean, up until like right now, there's something in like post-production.
Yeah, his work is amazing, and it's totally, there's touches of lyricism and surrealism mixed in so effortlessly that you just kind of float along in these stories, and you, like I said, they're completely captivating. Like you feel like you've entered another realm when you watch one of these Jean Cocteau movies. They can be saucy, they can be earthy, they can, like at the same time. There's just I love this movie. This is one of those. I don't know when did you first see it? Actually, that's a good question because I don't know when you first watched this.
It's been a long time, and I honestly don't know if I've seen the whole thing. Like it's been that long.
Oh wow!
This is one that this will almost be like a brand new viewing to me. I think the actual story of Beauty and the Beast is so interesting, and it's always one that's up for debate of whether it's about a woman who falls in love with her captor, or is it a story about acceptance? Because there were some arguments talking about, I think we had talked about this too, probably, even with like the Disney version, the animated, it kind of shows that like Belle herself was already kind of considered to be an outcast, as was her father. And here she just kind of like, yeah, the captive thing probably isn't the best way to go about it. But she kind of like learns to accept people, and that was the whole reason why this spell was put on this prince in the first place, is because he was so judgmental. Yeah, so
Yes.
is it a story of acceptance, or is it a story of a trapped woman, or both?
I always sort of took it more as Belle is sort of a more evolved, emotional, empathetic human being
Mhm.
who could see past the exterior including the fur and the fangs, but also the anger and the cruelty that seems to be present there. Like she sees those things and sees the human being underneath it, and she wants to bring that human being, like she can see it and she knows it's there, and there's a belief in her that that person can still come out. I feel as sort, but I also completely hear the like Stockholm syndrome captivity angle of the story. Like it's genuinely a bit questionable, but then as far as fairy tales go, I mean, the original versions of a lot of fairy tales are not pleasant, actually.
No.
um, like when you really go back through them, I'm like, okay, well, let's look at the original Cinderella.
There we
Oh,
go.
okay, well, the sisters cut off their toes and heels to try to fit into the shoe. The birds are her friends and they notice the blood, and then they peck the sisters' eyes out when they show up trying to curry favor with Cinderella once she's married the prince. I mean, it's just like there's a lot. There's a lot there. That's just one. I mean, let's go
Yeah.
through Little Mermaid, or let's go through The Red Shoes, where that story ends with her feet getting cut off and dying, and the little feet in the shoes just dance away off into the like. So what we got to also take that into consideration. But I do think Jean Cocteau comes at it from a slightly different angle as well, because and I'll let people come to this conclusion. I want people to tell me if they think that Belle kind of wishes he was still a beast after he becomes human again.
Mm.
There's a little, for me, there's always a little bit of a question because she falls in love with the beast. And then the beast is no more. And it's like, okay, well, she always wanted the person inside there. But once she's accessed that person, she doesn't care about the exterior anymore. And then something about the exterior is not as satisfying as the emotions you get when you have the beast. So it's like there's a little bit of questioning of that throughout the story. Like she's
Well,
falling in with the person as they are. So there's a lot of elements of it that I think a gay artist, like this, the two best films of this story are both made by queer people. You have Jean Cocteau and Howard Ashman,
mhm.
who really is the one who made Beauty and the Beast what it was. And they're both people who can understand being rejected based on some aspect of yourself that you feel you were incapable of changing. But this character, there's still an opportunity to free themselves from that. They sort of focus on that more in the Disney one. Here, it's not so much about her like, oh, if I fall in love with you, you'll become a human again. And, like that even seems somehow immaterial to her quest. Her quest is really to find the beauty inside the beast. And of course, people used to joke about this movie. They're like, okay, so Jean Cocteau made Beauty and the Beast, so that would make Belle like, so obviously the beauty is Jean Marais, so who's the beast? Because in Jean Cocteau's eyes, I'm sure Jean Marais was the greater beauty in some way, because they had probably had really interesting love affair for many years. But a symbiotic creative relationship as well that sort of comes to the fore in this movie too. But it is just like, it's genuinely magical, this movie. You can understand why Disney didn't even, was like, okay, we're putting this one way on the back burner
Yeah.
because there's no way we can top this right now.
No, no. Yeah, really, it was like over 40 years later, they're like, all right. Let's
I love what
finish
Luke said here. At the end of the day, however, this is miles better than whatever the hell that 2017 version was. Yes, the
the
one with the auto-tuned
yeah, Emma Watson.
Emma Watson.
Yeah. There are
Okay.
things I really like about that version. Like I was actually, because I when I saw that movie, I was expecting to completely hate it. And I didn't completely hate it. I don't think, I think it would be worlds better if Emma Watson wasn't in it. Um,
That's one element I would totally agree
just
could
the
improve
lead.
that movie.
Just recast the lead. Yeah, but there were some things about it that I did really like. There was definitely a lot of homage to the animated one, but I mean, the animated one is just such a masterpiece in itself.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
Patrice
I didn't
PJ
hate it. I didn't hate
PJ
it.
joined us,
Yes,
and we are
really.
talking about Beauty and the Beast, the French film by Jean Cocteau. That's the movie that we're suggesting for today. We were just talking about the movie Uptight, which was our choice yesterday. Just to update one of the folks who joined in.
And this movie is on 3 different streaming platforms, so there's really no excuse to not watch this movie. It is on the I'm not the biggest Emma Watson fan. I basically like her in Hermione as Hermione, and then maybe a couple other things. I did enjoy her.
Having someone in a musical who can't sing, and then the auto tuning is so severe that you can hear the auto tune more than her own voice, and she's singing all the big songs. Like, that's a problem that I cannot look past.
How many other actresses who are like A, better actors, and B, can actually sing could they have cast in that film? Like me.
I know. I mean, you would have been you are
right there.
I believe you could see the Beauty and the Beast.
I totally could. Also, I saw this on TikTok. Other Disney fans might know about this, but there is the new Beauty and the Beast ride at Tokyo Disney that looks insane. People look up videos of it. It just looks absolutely like mind-blowing with what they did with it. Anyway, what if Kristen Stewart was Belle instead? Okay, I like Kristen Stewart. Also wouldn't want her in this movie, though.
I don't think she can sing as
I don't think she can.
She doesn't have the Broadway musical style voice.
She did her own singing in The Runaways, which was like Joan Jett singing.
I was gonna say, because Joan Jett is totally like Broadway musical.
Completely. Practically.
You can get away with not having a good voice in rock.
Yeah, but Emma Watson,
it was I don't dislike her as an actor. I just did not like her in that movie because she can't sing. And really, I didn't need that movie because I already had the animated one and this one. And really, those 2 movies cover all of my needs for this story on film. As far as I mean, other people are inspired, and I love seeing artists inspired and creating something amazing from it. I didn't feel like that remake of Beauty and the Beast was inspired in 2017.
Say like the recent live action Cinderella remake, that was something where I really felt like they were doing their own new interpretation of the story and not just like, we're just going to remake the animated version. That was not like that at all. And the live action Disney Beauty and the Beast was definitely just trying to recreate the animated one, but in live action.
Look, see, Walter says he'd make a good Beast, and PJ, I agree. I think Amy Rossum actually would have been a good choice for Belle. She says it Amy. That's what I read, is that she says Amy Rossum, not Emmy. I've never heard her say it Emmy in interviews.
Well, that's weird.
It's spelled weird, but she would have been a great choice because she has that kind of angelic look, and she has the musical chops to really make those songs her own. And stick with the kind of melody that they want. Like, I think she would have been actually a good choice for that. But like I said, I've got this movie and the Disney version, the first Disney version.
I don't like her acting though.
Well, I guess we know we won't be getting Emma Watson as a Woman Crush Wednesday anytime soon.
No, but same with Amy, whatever the hell her name is. Okay, but back to this version. This movie is available on the Criterion app. It's available on HBO Max, and it's available for free on the Canopy app. Now, that's the one where you have to do a little bit of work to try and see if you have a library card. But they also have a pretty awesome, it is kind of, it's a library. They have a lot of great choices as well that they always, like any streaming service, add things to and take things away each month. But that's what I will say is on Canopy.
I will say with Canopy, you have a limited number of movie views per month.
You do.
So if you intend on using that regularly and you already have HBO Max or you already have Criterion Collection, I would watch it on one of those apps that you're already paying for. If you're going to join because I still say join Canopy because there's so many, so many things to watch for free on there. But don't use up one of your views on Canopy if you are already paying for a service that has this movie. So you can save that view for another film that's not available on other services.
Yeah,
that's how I'm,
on Criterion.
managing my streaming service subscriptions and use of Canopy. Oh, well, thank you, PJ. Oh, wow. My.
I was just trying to look like a little Disney princess today, even though this isn't Disney. Yeah, but again, really no excuse because it's available in so many different places, and one of them is free. So if you don't have these other streaming services, please watch this. Again, just a very visually stunning film, a different telling of Beauty and the Beast that you may have never seen before.
Right, and I just love saying the title, La Belle et la Bête.
La Belle et la Bête.
You may also get vibes of Cinderella, I will say, with the sisters in this movie.
Probably.
A little bit. You'll see. You'll see.
Please check out our Patreon if you're interested in contributing some money to us. We would really appreciate it. I will take the Snow White as a compliment because I am a vampire and I intentionally don't go out in the sun because I'm going to look young forever. Yeah, please check out our Patreon. Put that over there in the comments. Please watch this tonight. Join us tomorrow as we discuss this after watching it. And then moving on to a really fun Cult Classic Friday film from another one of our Patreons, the lovely Crystal. Tomorrow's film is Varsity Blues, which I am going to be legit sad about because Paul Walker's in it. And I get upset about it.
All I remember about the movie is the whipped cream.
Yeah, I actually don't think I've seen Not Another Teen Movie where they greatly make fun of Varsity Blues, but I don't think I ever actually saw it because I did not remember that whipped cream scene, and I certainly would have remembered that. Yeah, but please watch this movie tonight. Join us tomorrow. Thank you for all of your comments. I hope you guys enjoy watching this, and we'll see you tomorrow. Au revoir.